What's up everybody, and bienvenido a España. I'm here with Orbea for the launch of the all-new 8th generation 2027 Orbea Oiz, or as we Yanks will call it, the Orbea Oiz. This is their flagship XC race bike, and to say it has morphed over the years is quite an understatement. I have not ridden one of these since the 2015 edition, and I can tell you it's come a long way. It is undoubtedly the best version of it yet. And I say that having not ridden the two bikes before, but here's why. The whole frame has just been reimagined to take advantage of everything that was great about the last one. It was already one of the lightest frames on the market for an XC race bike. And this one actually sheds just a couple more grams, but it gets a lot stiffer in all the right places. And what that means is it's more confident of a descender, it's more confident of a climber, more powerful of a climber, and just everything about this, the little tweaks and subtle changes they did, helps the suspension work better. So even though XC racing is all about just, being a glutton for punishment and hurting, there's little tweaks that can make it a slightly more enjoyable experience. Let's run through the frame and I'll show you what those are.
Orbea made quite a presentation of our test bikes. After a pre-ride presentation to go over the details, we got a personal unveiling of the bikes we spec'd through their Mayo customization program. We made a few adjustments to the cockpit seat positions, set sag and rebound on the suspension, then grabbed some snacks and we were off. If you're wondering, a medium painted frame with hardware comes in around 1480 grams, and their one-piece bar stem is just 296 grams. Day one started as many media camps do, with my personal kryptonite, a big climb. Fortunately, the new Oiz is pretty good at it. Today, my bike had a full RockShox flight attendant setup, which defaults to firm, so it's very efficient. In the seated position, the geometry puts the rider in a perfectly balanced position, with enough weight on the rear for traction, and enough on the front to keep it from wandering or lifting up, even on really steep sections. Standing on rooty sections though, I was wishing the flight attendant would open up a little more quickly to maintain traction. It's not the bike's fault, but the rear shock was just staying locked more than I wanted and the rear tire would skip a little. Soon enough, we reached the top and dropped into a forested world of flow. Here, I started to get a sense of the bike's personality. Orbea's main goal with this redesign was to increase rear end stiffness, both torsionally and laterally. The goal being to improve tracking and handling precision for the rider, but also to keep the suspension working more smoothly, by keeping the seat stays driving straight forward to eliminate any friction on the shock. There's another design trick that helped, and I'll show you that in a minute. But my first impressions were good. The bike went exactly where I pointed it, and it reacted quickly to changes in direction. Something I definitely tested on fast, tight bits wiggling through tight trees. In terms of actual geometry, the new Oiz is very similar to its predecessor. The chainstays are just 2mm shorter, now 430, and the head angle is just 0.2 degrees slacker, coming in at 66.8 degrees. To keep the rider centered between the points where the rubber meets the trail, they also move the saddle a tiny bit forward. Combine that with the low cockpit, and the result is a very powerful rider-forward position for pedaling hard and fast. But as you're seeing, it works very well in the descents too. Okay, let's take a look at the bike. The top tube is now straight, with a wing tunnel partially hiding the shock. This is a much stiffer and lighter design than the prior model's bent top tube. You'll have your choice of SRAM or Shimano drivetrains, including mechanical groups on the lower price points. Regardless of drivetrain choice, all bikes come with the lighter Fox Transfer SL dropper post. For day 2, Orbea's mechanics were kind enough to switch my bike to Fox suspension. I'll tell you why in a minute, but let's look at the bike first. In addition to wrapping the top tube around the shock, rear end stiffness improvements came from adding a metal seat stay bridge and using a shorter linkage to drive the shock. With the Fox setup, you get the excellent 34 SL fork, and they add Orbea's squid lock dual dropper and lockout remote lever. Here, the default position is open. The top lever clicks through to trail and firm, then press it further to release it back to open. The bottom lever is your dropper remote. The bikes come with 2.4-inch wide tires, but you could maybe squeeze a little more in there. There's a small foam rubber flap minding the gap between the chainstay yoke and bottom bracket cluster, keeping gunk from getting stuck in there, and it seemed to work well. Another nice touch is that all frame sizes fit 2 water bottles. I like top tube bags, and even with 20mm of spacer under the stem to accommodate its strap, it still looks very low profile. Here's a quick look at a smaller frame with a Shimano XTR build. It's not just the linkage area. Orbea also made the entire rear triangle stiffer. No matter how you build it, they have understem covers to accommodate any cable and hose layout, keeping a very clean look. And you can absolutely slam the stem if you don't run spacers. Even the smaller sizes fit 2 bottles, but it does get a little tight under the shock. Day 2's ride started on a path, letting me ponder the bar. It's not as stiff as some other one-piece bars I've ridden, but also not as forgiving as those from One Up a Race Face, so I think it's a good compromise for racers. I also opened up the suspension to see how it moved under normal pedaling. It was minimal and didn't feel any more bouncy than other XC bikes. Then it was back to climbing. The Oiz has 120mm travel front and rear, which is enough to let me sit and pedal through rocky sections like this. For racers, that's huge, because it's far more efficient than standing, and you can keep laying down the power. Once at the top, it was time to do the fun stuff again, descending. Now, about the performance. Where most modern XC bikes are built as downcountry bikes that you can also race, the Orbea is an XC race bike that you can also rip like a light trail bike. And that's what surprised and delighted me the most. It's light, but it doesn't feel dainty. I could push this just as hard on the descents and through the rough stuff as my trail bike, but it climbs with pedals like a race bike. It can also take a fall, or 3. This area had gotten a lot of rain leading up to and through our camp, so conditions were challenging. But all this means that no matter what the course throws at you, the Oiz can handle it. It's a race bike that, dare I say, is really fun to ride. Okay, so here's why I switched to Fox suspension for day 2. Orbea co-developed the I-Line Float SL with Fox, which is how they completely hide the lockout cable leading into the shock. But more importantly, they worked directly with Fox to tune the shock to the bike, so I wanted to ride the bike on the suspension it was designed with. With the Fox installed, the Oiz came to life. Granted, the default here is open, so it's going to be more active unless you choose to lock it out. But all I can say is I enjoyed the bike a lot more with this setup. If it were up to me, I'd remove the lockout altogether and just put a standard shock and fork on there with a manual switch. But I'm not a racer, and this bike is designed and spec'd for the intended racer audience. Here's a bit more footage showing the terrain we tested the bikes on. Notice it's a mix of deep forest dirt, rocky slabs and slices, and plenty of roots. It's also a mix of wide open spaces, and tight tree-lined trails with limbs encroaching on your personal space. There were long climbs and short punchy ones, and long descents and rolling hillside traverses. Basically a solid mix, and most likely something similar to whatever trails you ride. For me, a lot of it felt like North Carolina's natural trails that I'm used to, and the Oiz performed flawlessly on all of them. Pay attention to this slow-mo. Notice that even though it doesn't look like the suspension is moving a whole lot, that rear tire stays planted to the ground. Honestly, I'm impressed. This is one of the best XC bikes I've ridden, and something that I'd ride year round. Well done, Orbea.
Hey, thanks a ton for watching. If you like this and you want more great videos, reviews, and all the other cool bike stuff we do, hit like, hit subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.